My name is Rosemary Hollister, 29 years old, and the day my little brother told me I wasn't his mother was the day I finally stopped being his sister. That sentence still echoes in my head like a cracked bell. He said it while standing in his messy dorm room, the one I paid for, with his brand new sneakers kicked under a pile of designer clothes, and two of his friends watching like it was a reality show. Stop controlling me, Rosemary. You're not Mom. Matthew's voice cracked mid-shout. His hands were shaking not from fear, but from fury. And I just stood there gripping the edge of his desk until my fingers turned white. I wanted to yell back. I wanted to shake him and scream, "You think I want to be Mom? You think I chose this?" But all I said was, "We need to talk about your spending." He scoffed. "I told you I got it handled. You're obsessed with money." His roommate Ash looked anywhere but at me. The other guy, a smug boy with an earring who'd been tagging along lately, decided to join the performance. Honestly, Rosemary tracking his purchases. That's kind of controlling. I turned slowly toward him. "And you are?" "Liam," he said, chin tilted like he thought he mattered. "Good for you, Liam." Matthew threw his hands up. "See, you can't talk to people like that." I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. "Matt, you spent $3,000 last month. On what party's clothes?" "That's my credit card, not a scholarship fund." He laughed cruel and bright. "You chose to pay for me. I never asked you to." That one hit deeper than any insult. Because he was right, he never asked. He was 18 when our parents died. I was 25, suddenly a guardian, a provider, and a broken daughter at the same time. Nobody asked me to do it. I just did. Because love doesn't wait for permission. I swallowed the hurt and said quietly, "You were a kid. Someone had to take care of you." "Well, I'm not a kid anymore," he snapped. "I'm 22. I can make my own decisions about my money." "Your money?" I raised an eyebrow. "You don't even have a job, Matthew." He rolled his eyes. "Because you never let me. You control everything. You think because you make money, you get to tell me how to live." My chest tightened. For years, I'd worked double shifts, skipped vacations, turned down promotions that required travel, all to stay close to him, to keep us both afloat. And now all that effort was being rewritten as control. Liam smirked from the couch. "Sounds like a power trip to me." I turned back to my brother. "Is that what you think? That this is about power?" He crossed his arms, staring me down like a Schallenberger. "You're just jealous I actually have a life." That one didn't just sting, it hollowed something inside me. For a moment I saw him not as my brother, but as a mirror reflecting every unhealed part of myself. The exhaustion, the resentment, the loneliness I'd buried under responsibility. "Okay," I said at last. My voice was too calm, even to my own ears. Matthew blinked. "What do you mean, okay?" "You're right," I said. "I'm not Mom, and I'm done pretending to be." He frowned, confused by how quiet I'd gotten. "What? Your money, your life, your decisions?" I continued, stepping back. "You want independence. You've got it." He stared, then smiled in triumph. Finally. God, was that so hard? "No," I said, forcing a small smile. "Super easy." He didn't notice that my hands were trembling. He didn't notice that I didn't say goodbye. He just grabbed his jacket and said, "We're going out," before brushing past me. When the door shut, I stood alone in that cramped dorm room, surrounded by the ghost of every sacrifice I'd made. The textbooks I'd paid for, the rent receipts, the framed photo of our parents still sitting on his desk. I took one last look at it and whispered, "Sorry, Mom." I tried. That night, my apartment was silent except for the ticking of the clock and the hum of my laptop. I opened my banking app. His credit card lost. Removed him as an authorized user. Canceled his $800 monthly Hollister's fare. Locked every shared subscription. Every click felt like a heartbeat slowing down. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like closing a wound that never healed. By midnight, I'd even contacted the phone company. I'd like to schedule a disconnection, I told the customer service rep, for my brother's line. There was a pause. "Ma'am, are you sure that'll cut off his access?" "I'm sure." When I hung up, the silence in the room changed. It wasn't heavy anymore. It was clean. I closed my laptop, exhaled, and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in 4 years, I felt something that almost scared me. Freedom. At 12:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. Matthew Card declined at the restaurant. "Something wrong with the account," I typed back. "Nope. All good on my end. Have a good night." I watched the message deliver, then I turned off my phone. Morning light spilled through the blinds, and for a second I almost forgot. Then I saw his framed graduation photo on my shelf, the one where I stood beside him in a black dress, smiling like I believed in his future more than my own. I sat down, rubbing my temples. He's going to hate me for this. But I also knew something he didn't hate fades faster than dependency. Somewhere I imagined him storming around campus, angry and helpless, calling me names. But underneath that anger, I hoped, no prayed, that a seed of something else was starting to grow. Reality? Because freedom isn't free. It costs everything you thought you deserved without earning. Before leaving for work, I checked my phone one more time. 10 missed calls, 5 texts, 2 emails. You're insane. I can't believe you're doing this. How am I supposed to eat? You'll regret this. Please, Rosemary, just talk to me. I deleted them all. Standing at the doorway, I whispered, "You wanted to be an adult, Matt. Time to meet the real world." Then I locked the door behind me, not just to my apartment, but to the role I'd been trapped in for years. That was the day I stopped being his sister and started being myself again. Freedom didn't last him long, 24 hours to be exact. By Saturday morning, my phone started vibrating nonstop, 8 missed calls in 10 minutes, all from Matthew. The 9th came with a voicemail. "Rosemary, what the hell did you do? My card's not working. I can't even buy coffee. You better fix this." The sound of his anger didn't sting this time. It almost made me tired, like I'd already spent every ounce of guilt I could afford. I brewed my coffee, sat by the window, and listened to the city wake up. The sound of car horns, neighbors' doors, a life that didn't revolve around him for once. The 10th call finally broke my calm. I picked up. "Morning, Matt," I said softly. "Don't morning me. My card's declined. The phone bill's acting weird, and my Spotify logged me out." "Did you cancel your access?" "Yes." "You can't do that." "I can actually. It's my account." "You're being ridiculous. I have classes. I need gas food." "You have a prepaid meal plan," I said, "and your dorm is covered until December. You'll be fine." His voice cracked. "I don't have cash. You're seriously going to let me starve?" The phrasing made me flinch because it wasn't just entitlement. It was dependency, the kind that comes from being too protected for too long. "You'll figure it out," I said, keeping my tone even. "That's what adults do." There was silence. Then he muttered, "You're so petty. This is abuse, Rosemary." I closed my eyes. "Then report me, Matthew." He hung up. By noon, the social artillery arrived. First, Ash, his roommate, texted, "Hi, Rosemary. I know things are tense right now, but Matt's really struggling. Could you just talk to him? He feels abandoned." Then came Liam. "Yo, this is cruel. He's literally your brother." And finally, a surprise number, Professor Doyle, his academic advisor. "Miss Hollister, Matthew came to see me this morning, very upset. He mentioned some financial issues." I leaned against my kitchen counter, staring at the floor. "Yes, I stopped supporting him financially. He's worried about losing his housing. It's prepaid. Through December." A pause. "Ah, I see. Well, I suppose he'll need to explore student funding options." I exhaled slowly. That's what I told him. The professor hesitated, then said quietly, "You know, most families don't teach lessons like this, but perhaps that's the problem." When he hung up, I sat there for a long moment, not proud, not vindicated, just hollow. Because what people never tell you is that doing the right thing often feels worse than doing the wrong one. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and went through the drawer of receipts I'd kept since my parents' accident. Funeral costs, hospital bills, his first year of college tuition, rent payments. Each one had my name printed at the top, his life written beneath it. At the bottom of the pile, I found a crumpled piece of paper, a Mother's Day card. He must have been 19 when he made it, handwritten in messy ink. "Thanks for being both sister and mom. I'll make you proud one day." I held it so long the edges softened under my thumb. That version of him, the grateful kind, scared boy. Where had he gone? Or maybe, had I pushed him away by trying too hard to fill Mom's shoes? The guilt came back like a storm surge. I turned off the lights and whispered into the dark, "Maybe I really am too much like her." Sunday morning, a call came from an unexpected number, Aunt Patricia. "Rosemary, what in God's name is going on?" I smiled faintly. "Good morning to you too. Don't play smart. Matthew called me sobbing last night, said you cut him off completely." "I did," I said. "You can't do that. You know he depends on you." "I know," I replied. "That's the problem." She huffed. "He's a college student. How do you expect him to survive?" "When I was 22, I worked 2 jobs and studied part-time," I said quietly. "He can too." "That's different. You weren't orphaned at 18. I was 25 and orphaned." "Patricia," I snapped. I still had to go to work the next week. Nobody paid my bills. The silence that followed was heavy and sharp. Finally, she sighed. "You're really going to do this? Just abandon him?" "I'm not abandoning him," I said, my voice steady now. "I'm respecting his choice. He said he didn't want me controlling his life. So now he's in control." "He's going to have to drop out," she said, desperate. No, he won't. This semester's already paid for. He has 3 months to figure out next term. I'll send him money myself, she declared. Great, I said. He spends about $4,000 a month. That's $48,000 a year, plus tuition, rent, insurance. Should I send you the breakdown? Her voice faltered. 4,000 what? Check his Instagram, I said. Designer sneakers, rooftop restaurants, VIP concerts. You'll see where it goes. A pause. Then I can't afford that. Neither can I said softly. That's the point. She exhaled shakily. You're colder than your mother ever was. Maybe I whispered, but at least I'm not lying to him. She hung up. That night I sat on my bed scrolling through Matthew's profile. Every photo felt like a slap. Him on a yacht, him at a rooftop bar, him with a champagne bottle in hand flashing a peace sign. Underneath his caption read, "No limits, no rules." My chest ached, not from anger, but from the reminder that somewhere between grief and survival, I'd raised a boy who never had to face no. Maybe this was my fault after all. I locked my phone, turned its screen down, and whispered to the darkness, "Learn, Matthew. Please just learn." Monday morning came quiet and gray. I poured coffee, packed my work bag, and opened my inbox. There it was. His name again. Subject, "You're not done teaching me lessons, right?" I hesitated before clicking. Inside was a single sentence. "If you wanted me to hate you, congratulations. Mission accomplished." I leaned back in my chair. For a moment, I almost cried. Almost. Then I whispered to myself, hate fades. Lessons don't. I closed my laptop and left for work, pretending not to notice that my hands were shaking. Because no matter how strong I acted, I knew what came next. When a child's freedom meets the real world, it's never quiet. It's chaos before growth. And the storm hadn't even started yet. If guilt had a sound, it would be my ringtone that week. Every time it buzzed, I knew it wasn't work. It was someone wanting me to be reasonable. By Tuesday, my inbox messages and voicemails were flooded, each one a polite version of "you're heartless." But the most unexpected one came from Aunt Patricia again. This time, her tone wasn't angry. It was almost pleading. "Rosemary, sweetheart." She began sugarcoating the concern. "Maybe this has gone too far. He's just a boy." "He's 22, I reminded her. "Yes, but still he's your brother. He's family." I stared out the window, watching rain slide down the glass. Family doesn't mean unconditional funding. "Don't say it like that," she sighed. "He told me you cut off his phone, his cards. He couldn't even call me without borrowing a friend's." "He has Wi-Fi," I said flatly. There was a long pause. "You know what, Rosemary? You're starting to sound just like your father." That one cut deep. My father, the man who loved rules more than comfort, who thought strictness was love, the man who never said "I'm proud of you," but always said "do better." Maybe she meant it as an insult, but part of me wondered if that was exactly what Matthew needed right now, someone who wouldn't let him drown in softness. Then maybe I said quietly, "It's about time one of us did." She hung up without another word. That night, I came home to silence so loud it felt like punishment. I tried to distract myself with dinner, but the fork stayed untouched. I kept seeing his face from that day in the dorm, the way he'd looked at me like I'd betrayed him. It was almost funny. I'd been his provider, protector, everything. But in one moment, I became the villain in his story. And villains don't get peace. I walked into his old room, the one that still smelled faintly of his cologne and unwashed hoodies. The shelves were bare now, except for a single photo, the two of us at the beach years ago. He was maybe 15, gangly and sunburned, holding a melting ice cream cone. Mom had taken that photo. I remember how she laughed when I scolded him for dropping chocolate on my white dress. "Let him be messy, Rosemary," she'd said. "You can't clean up every part of life." I hadn't understood it then. I think I do now. I sat on his bed and whispered into the dark, "I'm sorry I made you weak." By Wednesday, the storm had expanded beyond family. First, Ash called again. "Hey, Rosemary, I don't mean to intrude, but Matthew hasn't been eating. He's really out of it." "He has a meal plan," I said. "I know, but he says it's too embarrassing to go to the dining hall. People are talking about it." I sighed. People talk about everything. Then Ash said quietly, "He's not mad, you know. He's just lost." Lost. That word landed harder than I expected, because under all his arrogance, that was exactly what Matthew was lost between dependence and adulthood, comfort and chaos. "Thanks, Ash," I murmured. "I'll think about it." That evening, I got another unexpected call. Ms. Hollister. "This is Professor Doyle again. I hope I'm not overstepping." "You're fine," I said. "Is he okay?" "He came by my office today," the professor said, his tone measured. "He asked if there were emergency grants available. I gave him the paperwork." "Good," I whispered. He hesitated. "He's angry at you, of course. But between us, I think you did the right thing." I see students like him every semester, kids who've never had to struggle. They crumble the first time life doesn't cushion them. Something in me unclenched for the first time all week. Thank you, I said softly. You might have just saved him from himself, he added, then chuckled, though he'll probably thank you in, 10 years. I smiled despite myself. I can wait. But peace didn't last long. The next morning, Aunt Patricia sent a text that nearly made me drop my phone. Aunt P, I sent him $300. Don't judge me. Me. I'm not judging. Aunt P, he said he's looking for a job. You see, he's learning. Me. That's good. But remember, lessons only stick when they cost something. I didn't hear from her after that. That Friday, I went for a walk after work. The air was heavy with the scent of rain and exhaust. I ended up near the park where Mom used to take us. There was a young woman there pushing a toddler on the swing. She looked exhausted, but content, smiling every time the child giggled. And for a moment I envied her, because she still had someone small enough to protect. Mine wasn't small anymore. Mine was out there making mistakes I couldn't stop him from making. The ache in my chest tightened. I sat on the nearest bench and whispered to the wind, he'll hate me for this. But maybe hate is better than helpless. That night around 10 p.m., I got a call from Matthew's number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Rosemary. He sounded tired, small. Hey, I said carefully. You okay? Yeah. A long pause. Just wanted to say, I found a job posting. At the bookstore. Gonna apply tomorrow. That's good. I'll probably hate it. That's part of the charm. He chuckled weakly. Still mad at you, though. I know. Good night, he said, his voice quieter now. Good night, Matt. The line clicked off, and I sat there staring at my reflection in the window. Somewhere between anger and exhaustion, a small flicker of pride lit inside me. Maybe, just maybe, he was starting to get it. But as I'd learned soon enough, Matthew never stayed humble for long. Because rock bottom isn't a single moment. It's a staircase you fall down slowly, one missed step at a time. And he was only halfway down. The following week began quietly, too quietly. No calls, no messages, no guilt trips from Aunt Patricia. At first, I let myself believe silence meant progress, that maybe Matthew was finally doing the thing he'd never done before thinking. But silence in our family never meant peace. It meant a storm was building somewhere out of sight, and it didn't take long to hit. It started with a voicemail from an unfamiliar number. Hi, this is Jamie from the campus bookstore. We're calling to verify employment history for Matthew Hollister, who listed you as his supervisor at a consulting firm. Consulting firm. I almost laughed. I don't even own one. I called back, voice steady. Hi, yes, there must be some mistake. Matthew's never worked for me. I don't run a business. There was a pause. Oh, thank you for letting us know. When I hung up, my hands were trembling, not from anger, from disbelief. He hadn't just lied to Hollistergers, he'd used my name. For years, I'd worked to protect his reputation, to make professors, landlords, even relatives believe he was finding his way. Now he was willing to drag my name through the mud to keep up appearances. It was the first time I felt something colder than disappointment. Betrayal. I opened my laptop and froze every joint account. Reported a fraud alert, just in case. Then I sat back staring at the screen as my reflection blurred into the dark glass. Mom, I whispered. How do you teach a grown child to stop lying? No answer, of course. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the echo of my own exhaustion. That night, around midnight, my phone buzzed again, this time with a notification from an unfamiliar platform. GoFundMe help Matthew. Stay in school abandoned by family. My heart sank before I even opened it. There he was smiling softly in a selfie captioned with heartbreak. I lost my parents young. My sister promised she'd take care of me, but recently she cut me off with no warning. I'm facing eviction hunger and losing my chance at graduation. I've never asked for anything, but I'm desperate. He'd even added a breakdown. Housing $20,000, tuition $15,000, basic needs $10,000, emergency fund $5,000, goal $50,000. The comments were already rolling in. This is heartbreaking. Stay strong, kid. Some people forget what family means. My stomach turned. The image of him laughing at rooftop bars and flashing luxury sneakers burned in my mind. The same boy who had once told me, "You're not my mom," was now painting me as a monster for not being one. By morning, the fundraiser had reached $250, $50 from Liam, $25 from Ash, and $175 from an anonymous donor who I strongly suspected was Aunt Patricia. Then the extended family chat lit up like fireworks. Uncle Steve, Rosemary, what's this fundraiser about? Please tell me it's a misunderstanding. Cousin Lisa. Wait, he says he's homeless. Aunt Patricia. He is struggling. We should help him instead of judging. Me. His housing and tuition are paid through December. He's not homeless. Cousin Lisa. Then what's he doing posting about a $400 dinner last week? The thread went quiet for a full minute. Then someone posted a screenshot from his Instagram, him holding a champagne flute at a luxury rooftop bar. Uncle Steve looks like he's surviving fine. By the next afternoon, the comments on his GoFundMe shifted from sympathy to disbelief. Maybe sell the designer bags first. 3 jobs, but posting from brunch communications major who can't communicate honestly. The page came down within 24 hours. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. Because beneath the lies and the chaos, I could still see the scared kid hiding behind them, the one who couldn't stand feeling small. That evening, I found myself sitting in my car outside his campus. I didn't plan to go in. I just wanted to see for myself that he was okay. Through the dorm windows, I spotted movement. A silhouette pacing, gesturing wildly at Matthew. Talking to someone, probably Ash or that new girl I'd seen in his photos. He was alive, talking, breathing, and still trying to control his own narrative. That was enough. I turned the engine back on. The next morning, another message blinked on my screen. From him. Matthew, you told Aunt Pat about my fundraiser real classy. I typed slowly. I didn't have to. You made it public. You think you're teaching me a lesson, but all you're doing is making me hate you. Then hate me. Just make sure you learn something from it. He didn't reply, but I knew him well enough to know silence meant scheming. By Thursday, Ash called again. Her voice was hesitant. Rosemary, I'm really sorry to bother you again, but Matthew's acting Sholisturge. How Sholisturge? He's selling stuff. His laptop, his watch, maybe even some of our things. He asked to borrow my iPad, and when I said no, he got angry. I think he's trying to get money fast. I closed my eyes. Thank you for telling me, Ash. Just keep your valuables safe. I will, but is he okay? He looks so lost. The question hung heavy. I wanted to say no, but instead I whispered, he's trying to find himself. Sometimes that looks like falling apart first. When we hung up, I sat for a long time at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. My phone lay next to a framed photo, me and him at his high school graduation, his arms slung lazily around my shoulders. Both of us pretending the world hadn't already taken too much from us. I'm not punishing you, I whispered to the photo. I'm just finally letting you feel what life feels like without me holding it up. The words didn't make it hurt less. That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the apartment sounded like regret. Every gust of wind like his voice shouting, "You're not Mom." But somewhere inside, deeper than the pain, was a tiny flicker of certainty. He was falling, but at least now it was his fall, not mine. And if he ever climbed out, maybe he'd understand the difference between love and rescue. He showed up at my apartment door 5 days later. I almost didn't recognize him. The same brother who used to waltz around in crisp shirts and brand-name sneakers now stood in front of me in wrinkled jeans, his hair sticking up like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes, once defiant, looked sunken and bruised from exhaustion. "Rosemary," he said, voice low, "please, just hear me out." I hesitated before unlocking the door. 5 minutes. He exhaled, relief flooding his face. "Thank you." When he stepped inside, I noticed the laptop tucked under his arm and the faint smell of cheap instant noodles clinging to his jacket. He set the laptop on my dining table and looked around the apartment, maybe realizing for the first time that it wasn't much different from his dorm. Small, clean, paid for. "Water?" I asked. He nodded, silent. I poured him a glass. His hands shook as he took it. I made something I need to show you," he stammered, opening his laptop. A slideshow appeared on the screen. Title: Investment Opportunity, Matthew Hollister's Future. I blinked. "You're kidding." He looked dead serious. "No. Look, you said you didn't want to give me money, so this is different. It's not charity, it's a deal." He clicked to the first slide, Education Fund Return on Investment Plan. "I'm offering you 5% interest on any money you put toward my college expenses. Once I graduate and get a job, I'll pay it back." "What's your major again?" I asked quietly. "Communications," he said almost proudly. "Average starting salary." He clicked to the next slide, $35,000 per year. I raised an eyebrow. "And how much are you asking for?" He hesitated. $4,500 a month for living expenses plus tuition. So like 80 grand total for 2 years. 80,000. He nodded eagerly. "Yeah, but with interest it'll be like 85, maybe 90. You'll get your money back and help me finish school." For a moment I didn't speak. He was looking at me like a salesman desperate for a yes, like a child selling lemonade who didn't realize the price of lemons. I finally said, "When's the last time you went to class, Matt?" He froze. "What?" "Your attendance records." I checked the portal. "You logged in?" "Of course. You've missed 60% of your classes this semester." His face hardened. "I've been dealing with a lot." I leaned forward. "Bottle service at Envy every Thursday night counts as a lot." His mouth fell open. How did you? "You posted it on Instagram," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "You tagged yourself every weekend while I worked overtime to pay your bills." He looked away, guilt flickering across his face before pride swallowed it. "I'm young Rosemary. I'm allowed to have fun." I felt my throat tighten. At whose expense mine? The sister who spent her 20s making sure you had a future. He slammed his laptop shut. "This isn't about gratitude, it's about control. You've been smothering me since the day Mom and Dad died." That name Mom and Dad hung in the air like a ghost. "Do you think I wanted to be them?" I whispered. He glared. "Yeah, sometimes it sure looked like it." Something inside me broke open. All the nights of budgeting, crying quietly in the shower, praying bills wouldn't bounce. It all came pouring out in one trembling breath. I gave up everything, Matt. Trips, promotions, friends. I missed funerals because I couldn't afford a day off. You think I enjoyed being your keeper? You think I didn't wish someone had taken care of me for once?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. "I didn't cut you off to hurt you," I said, voice shaking. "I did it because you were turning into someone who thought love meant money." He flinched. Tears welled in his eyes, and for a second I saw my little brother again, the one who used to crawl into my bed after nightmares. But just as quickly that boy vanished behind anger. "You think this is love," he hissed. "Abandoning me, making me beg." I swallowed hard. "No, this is love with boundaries." He stared at me for a long, trembling second, then whispered, "You're just like him." It took me a beat to realize who he meant. "Dad?" I asked softly. "Yeah," he said, his voice rising. Cold, controlling, always needing to be right. The words hit me harder than he probably intended. Because I'd spent my entire adult life trying not to be our father, the man who thought affection was a reward for obedience. But in that moment, maybe I was him. Maybe I'd become the same hard wall that once hurt me. I took a deep breath and said, "You're right. Maybe I am. But he taught me one thing. If you don't learn how to stand on your own, life will break you worse than I ever could." He slammed his fist against the table. "You just can't stop lecturing, can you?" I stood up. "And you can't stop blaming me for doing what Mom and Dad didn't live long enough to do, raise you." We stared at each other in the kind of silence that only exists between people who used to love each other without question. Then he whispered, "I hate you for this." "I know," I said softly, "but I love you enough to let you." That broke him. His jaw clenched. His eyes glistened, and he grabbed his laptop, muttering, "I'll show you. I don't need you or your money." "Good," I said quietly. "Then you'll finally find out what you're really worth." He stormed out, slamming the door behind him so hard the picture frames rattled. I stood there for a long time, staring at the dent his anger had left in the air. And then my phone buzzed. Bank alert, attempted account access from unfamiliar device. My stomach dropped. I opened the notification and froze. Someone had tried to link my checking account to a new online wallet using my social security number and his student ID. "Matthew," I whispered, a mix of rage and heartbreak twisting in my chest. I called the bank, immediately reported the attempt, and set up a credit freeze. When the call ended, I sank to the floor, my back against the wall, breathing hard. This wasn't a rebellion anymore. It was desperation. And for the first time since this began, I wasn't sure if I was helping him grow up or pushing him too far into the dark. I buried my face in my hands and whispered, "Please, God, don't let him destroy himself to prove he doesn't need me." But deep down, I knew the truth. The only way some people learn not to drown is to finally feel the water close over their head. When you cut someone off financially, you imagine the hardest part will be their anger. But the truth is, it's not. It's the silence that follows the quiet hours when you wonder if you've created a monster or if you've finally set one free. For a week after the confrontation, I heard nothing from Matthew. Not a text, not a call. The world felt wrong without his chaos orbiting me. Every night I checked my phone anyway, half hoping for a "you were right" that would never come. Instead, on the 8th day, my phone rang. Not his name, but Ash again. Her voice was uneasy. "Rosemary, I don't know if you've heard, but Matthew's been acting off." I closed my laptop. "What do you mean?" "He barely leaves the room. He's selling stuff, his watch, his speakers, even his gaming console. Said he doesn't need distractions." "That's not like him." "I know," she said softly. "But that's not the weird part. He's hanging out with this new guy a lot. Brandon older, maybe late 20s. They've been spending a ton of time together. He seems nice, but it's fast. My stomach tightened. Fast how? They met like 2 weeks ago. Now Brandon's paying for his meals, giving him rides everywhere. He even offered to help with rent next semester. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Great. From one financial dependency to another. Ash hesitated. He says he's fine, but I don't know. He keeps saying, at least Brandon gets me. The words burned, because that's exactly what he used to say about me. That night, I walked through my apartment like a ghost. Everything reminded me of him, the second mug on the shelf, the folded blanket on the couch where he used to crash when he came home for weekends. I sat down and opened my journal for the first time in months. He's finding someone new to save him, but maybe that's what he needs to see, that rescue isn't love when it comes with conditions. Halfway through writing, my phone buzzed, a notification. GoFundMe help. Matthew Hollister, Rebuild His Life 2.0. I felt my chest cave in. This time the campaign wasn't just emotional manipulation, it was performance art. There was a video. In it, Matthew sat on a park bench pretending to hold back tears. His voice quivered as he said, "My sister abandoned me. I'm trying to stay in school, but I can't afford food or housing. I just need a chance." I couldn't even finish it. I closed my eyes and leaned back, letting the wave of exhaustion crash over me. He'd turned his pain into a product. By morning, the fundraiser had $400 from Hollister Gers and one familiar name, anonymous. $300. Aunt Patricia, of course. The family chat exploded again. Uncle Steve Rosemary. "What's going on this time, Cousin Lisa? He's still saying he's homeless. This is ridiculous. Aunt Patricia. You all don't understand. He's traumatized. Me. He's manipulating you, Aunt Patricia. You used to be kind, Rosemary. Now you're cruel. Me. Kindness without limits turns into cruelty anyway." That was the last time she texted me for weeks. I spent that weekend doing something I hadn't done in a long time. Nothing. No work, no caretaking, just sitting. But guilt has a way of finding you, even in stillness. By Sunday night, I broke and called Ash again. "How is he?" I asked. She sighed. He deleted the fundraiser after someone commented that he should sell his designer sneakers first. He's embarrassed. "Good," I muttered. Then softer, maybe it'll wake him up. "Maybe," she said. "But he's still not eating much, and he barely talks. I think he's depressed." That word depressed hit me like a stone to the chest. "Has he said anything scary?" "No," she said quickly. "Just sad stuff. Like he doesn't see the point of anything anymore." I gripped the phone tighter. "If it gets worse, call me. Day or night." "I will." When I hung up, my throat ached. I told myself this was part of the process, that real growth always comes after the fall. But deep down, I knew that sometimes when people hit bottom, they don't always climb back up. And that terrified me. 2 days later, I got another call. Unknown number again. I almost ignored it until I heard the voice. "Miss Hollister, this is Bethany Matthews' new roommate. I know we haven't met, but I'm worried about him." My pulse spiked. What happened? "Nothing dramatic, just he's not himself. He sits in the dark a lot, talks about dropping out, but then sometimes he's manic. Says everything's fine, that Brandon's taking care of him now. It's weird." "Thank you for telling me," I said. "Please keep an eye on him, okay?" "I will," she said softly. "You're a good sister, by the way. He won't say it, but he talks about you a lot." After she hung up, I sat in silence, tears slipping down before I even realized I was crying. Because no matter what anyone said, no matter what he said, part of him still needed me. He just couldn't admit it yet. That night I dreamed of Mom. She was standing in the kitchen of our old house, stirring a pot of soup. When she turned to me, her eyes were full of the same sadness I felt. "Let him fall," she whispered, "but make sure the ground isn't too hard." I woke up before dawn, drenched in sweat. It was 4:12 a.m. when I opened my email, and there it was. From Matthew Hollister, subject, "You win." For a moment, my heart stopped. I opened it with trembling hands. "You win. I got a job at the campus cafe. 20 hours a week. Still think you're right about everything, but whatever. I'll figure it out. Don't reply." I read it 3 times. Then I cried harder than I had since our parents' funeral. Not out of sadness, out of relief. He'd finally chosen to stand, even if he did it with bitterness. That evening, I sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching the streetlights flicker on one by one. He was still angry, still prideful, still stubborn, but he was working, eating, surviving. And for the first time in months, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we'd both found a way to breathe again. In the quiet, I whispered to no one in particular. Sometimes love isn't about saving them from falling. It's standing far enough away to let them climb out. The city outside my window hummed softly, the same rhythm that had carried me through every heartbreak, every responsibility, every long night of being both sister and mother. Now I was finally just me. And my brother, he was finally becoming himself. It was almost a month before I heard his voice again. Not in person, not even over the phone, but through a voicemail. "Hey, Matthew," said his tone somewhere between awkward and proud. "So, I got my first paycheck. Not a lot, but it's mine. Thought you should know." He didn't say goodbye, just hung up after a soft laugh that cracked halfway through. For a second, I didn't move. I just stood there holding my phone like it was something fragile and alive. Then I smiled, small, quiet, the kind that hurts because it means too much. He'd done it. After months of entitlement, after the fights, the silence, the lies, my brother had earned something that didn't come from me. And that changed everything. That evening, I walked to the small cafe where he said he worked. It was late, almost closing time. The kind of hour where exhaustion hangs heavy in the air and the smell of coffee becomes part of the walls. Through the window, I saw him behind the counter wiping tables. His movements were tired but careful, like he didn't want to do anything wrong. He didn't see me. I didn't go in. I just stood there on the sidewalk watching. When a customer handed him a crumpled $5 bill as a tip, he smiled, a real one. Not the fake grin he used to wear for photos, but something honest. It was the first time in years I'd seen my brother look at peace. Walking home, I thought about the last few months, how far we'd both come without realizing it. I used to think my love had to look like protection, control, sacrifice. But maybe real love looks more like distance, the kind that gives someone room to find their own footing. I had spent so many years trying to fill the space Mom and Dad left behind that I forgot how to stand still. Maybe that was my lesson too. A week later, I received an email. Subject FYI, from Matthew Hollister. I clicked it. I got approved for a student loan. Brandon helped with the application. We're splitting rent next semester. I'm still mad at you, don't think I'm not, but I get why you did it now. I was lazy, entitled. I thought love meant comfort. It doesn't. I don't know if I can ever say thank you out loud, so I'm writing it instead. Also, I'm keeping the job even after the loans come through. Turns out I like earning my own money. Weird, right? P.S. I still think cutting my phone was petty. I had to take the bus. The bus Rosemary. P.P.S. Brandon says hi. He wants to meet you eventually. Don't worry, he actually has a job. I read it 3 times. The first time I cried. The second I laughed. The third I just sat there and let the silence wrap around me like a blanket. He'd grown up. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. I hit reply and typed, "Proud of you. The bus builds character. P.S. Tell Brandon I'll run a credit check before dinner." I almost hit send, then stopped. I deleted the P.S. He didn't need warnings anymore. He needed trust. So I left it simple. "Proud of you," and sent it. Thanksgiving came and went without him. Aunt Patricia, of course, had opinions. "You should have made peace, Rosemary," she said between bites of roasted turkey. "He's family." "He knows where to find me," I replied. But the truth was, I'd set 1 extra plate at the table anyway, just in case. It stayed empty. A few weeks later, as the city dressed itself in Christmas lights, a knock came at my door. When I opened it, there he was. He looked older, not by years, but by weight, the kind that comes from responsibility. "Hey," he said. "Hey," I answered. "I'm not here to fight." "Good," I said with a smile, because I'm fresh out of energy for that. He laughed a soft, genuine laugh. He stepped inside, glancing around the apartment. "You changed the curtains." "Yeah, needed something brighter." He nodded, then held out an envelope, early Christmas gift. Inside was a pay stub. His name, his hours, his wage. He'd even written a note on it. "Repaying my first investor." I looked up at him, eyes blurring. "Matt?" He shrugged. "It's just $20, but it's a start." I pulled him into a hug before he could protest. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. When he finally pulled away, there were tears in his eyes, but this time they weren't angry ones. He glanced at the wall where an old photo of our parents still hung. "Think they'd be proud." "I know they would," I said softly. "Especially of you." He smiled, quiet, humble, real. "Maybe next year I'll host Thanksgiving." I laughed. "Just don't make me bring the turkey." "Deal." After he left, I stood by the window watching the snow begin to fall. For the first time in years, I didn't feel responsible for someone else's survival. Just proud of their growth. He'd learned what freedom really costs. And I'd learned that love, real love, sometimes means letting go until they find their own balance. As I turned off the lights, I whispered into the stillness, "You made it, kid." Then, after a beat, I added, "We both did." The next morning, I woke up to another voicemail. Matthew's voice, warm and bright this time. "Hey, guess what? I got promoted to shift lead. Small raise, but still." Oh, and Brandon says hi again. Also, if you're not busy Christmas Eve, come by the cafe. I'll make you something special. P.S. You can't refuse. I already put your name on the VIP list. I smiled, pressing the phone to my chest. Freedom, it turned out, didn't break us. It rebuilt us. And maybe that was the real inheritance Mom and Dad had left behind. Not money, not safety, but the strength to start over. As I left for work, I passed by his old bedroom. Empty now, sunlight spilling in through the curtains. For the first time, it didn't feel lonely. It felt peaceful. My brother's freedom lasted 24 hours before reality caught up. The meltdown lasted a week. The lesson might last a lifetime. And me, I finally